Hello and welcome to the Biz Coach Show, hosted by my Biz Coaches and presented by the TLG Group. Our show is focused on giving entrepreneurs the edge they need to succeed. Let's meet our guest for today's episode. Our guest today is Connie Kadansky. Connie is a sales call reluctance coach and trainer. Connie holds multiple certifications, including Certified Mentor Coach, ECHO, Positive Intelligence, Certified Breakthrough Coach, and Coaching Mindset Index. Connie is also a member of the National Speakers Association. Connie has been featured in numerous publications, including the Wall Street Journal, CEO, Inc., Bloomberg Business, and more. Connie has worked with Fortune 50 companies, universities, and global organizations. Learn more at exceptionalsales.com. Well, Connie, it is great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Terrific. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. We're very happy to have you with us. And I know we've got a lot of great topics and great insights for our audience today. So thanks so much for joining us. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Fantastic. Always great to hang out with you. And Connie, before we jump into our topics for today, I was wondering if you could tell us just a little bit more about your journey. So you've got a lot of certifications. You've worked with a lot of big companies. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about kind of how you got to where you are today.
Well, I don't get scared. I promise I'll make this quick. I fell in love with sales at 5 years old. My piano teacher handed me a bunch of poppies for Veterans Day at 5 years old. And she said, Connie, I want you to go to every neighbor and sell one of these for $1. I never had more fun in all my life. Then I started selling newspapers and getting new subscriptions. So I was always interested in sales. And then I was a fast typer. And my high school teacher said, you got to look at court reporting. So I went to school for court reporting. I did one trial and that was it. And so my mother said, I think you're good at sales. So I'm affiliated with 2 behavioral scientists out of Dallas, Texas as a licensee in overcoming sales call reluctance. It's their trademark. So for 27 years, I've worked throughout the world in helping salespeople overcome that fear of initiating contact. And believe it or not, it is a big issue with new people, seasoned and mid-career salespeople. So that's
awesome.
Where I am.
No, that's great. And I know Eric and I definitely can appreciate that, both coming from a sales background and have seen that firsthand. So I know just how valuable the work is that you do and the impact it has on organizations. So thanks so much for sharing your journey with us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I think I could have used a coach like that some years ago when I first started.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, today we're going to be discussing kind of all things sales. Our topic is superior sales. And to kind of dive in, Eric, I'm going to kind of tee up for this first one because I know as a coach, you're always working with small businesses on kind of how to track, how to analyze their sales, and how to identify opportunities for improvement or sales optimization. So what are some of the tips or strategies that you have as a business coach, kind of looking at those things that our audience could kind of, get some insight from?
Yeah. So the best thing I would do in regards to kind of demonstrating the value here, and David, you can relate to this because when we worked at our previous employer, this is one of the things we were able to do. But basically what we could do is we could take the analytics that we had, the different data points that we had, and whether it was the lifetime value of the customer, the average transaction value, the closing percentage based on the amount of traffic that we saw in the store, the conversion rate of ancillary items that we might add to that, and basically compile all of that information together into an aggregate of a number that we would use and we would attribute to a transaction within a store. Knowing what our closing rate was as a company, then we could take that and back into a financial revenue projection, right? Not only for a day, a week, and a month, and then literally we could determine whether or not a store would be a profitable store We could also look individually at individual salespeople and demonstrate who was outperforming others, even though, for instance, Connie she may be a full-time employee and I'm only a part-time employee. But you would look at her numbers and she would be obviously substantially higher than what my numbers would be. But because we could get to the metrics that would show how many door swings I saw while I was working versus how many door swings she saw while she was working, we could actually measure employees against one another for performance, right? So it took all the guessing out of it. It took a lot of the it just really strips away and takes it right down to the hard data and determines whether or not people are executing at the level they should be executing at, and whether or not you're achieving the metrics that you should for each of the different key categories of the business, the revenue drivers of the business. And not only was that important on a personal level, but then that would allow us to, even in an acquisition mode, when we would acquire other companies with stores, we would be able to assess the stores, and just by looking at the traffic, we could determine whether or not we'd make that store profitable or not. So it's there was a lot that goes into it. When you're talking about conversion rates, you're talking about revenue per transaction or lifetime value of a customer. But these are all key metrics that most small business owners do not have a handle on, and it is such a huge value when you have those metrics and you measure those metrics on a consistent basis, and what you're, and in the beginning, you start with one or two metrics, right? And then you adjust and you recognize patterns and you're like, oh, here's another thing that we can track, right? We have access to the ability to track these numbers. And as you kind of aggregate all that information together, you can literally build a business outline, I guess, for lack of a better term, even like a plan based on the data that you have that you're able to pull together. And then that allows you to then back into, and for me in a leadership role, what it allowed me to do is quickly acknowledge and recognize where I had gaps in my business. So when there was a lack of performance in a particular store, group of individuals, whatever it might be, I could actually recognize that by looking at the trends of the percentages of achievement based on the different metrics that we were measuring, and recognize, okay, here's a gap here. Let's go here and figure out why there's an issue. And I had a pretty uncanny ability to kind of look at my numbers and quickly identify that there were issues in certain stores with certain metrics, and then walk into the store within 30 minutes to figure out why we weren't achieving the rates that we should be achieving based on my physical assessment at that point, right? Yeah. But I try and help, and I'll take that one step further as it relates to a business owner. When you have that level of insight into your business with 7-10 key metrics, you can literally manage your business effectively without having to dig into your P&Ls, which are great tools. However, they're dated. They're always 15. I mean, realistically, you're always looking at the last 30 days. So P&Ls and things like that aren't really valuable, where these metrics are numbers that you're tracking on a day in and day out basis. So as the business finds itself derailing, you can actually course correct on a day in and day out basis when you're looking at the sales metrics and how you're engaging with your clients on a regular basis. So a little long-winded there, but I think that's the over-encompassing. It really helps, like I said, as a small business owner, when you have a handle on those numbers, you can just measure each day's performance and determine whether or not you're moving towards or away from the goals that you have.
Yeah. No, great insights. And I think what's great is a lot of software now, whether it's a CRM or, traffic Correct. Or invoice data, right? A lot of that's built in. It's just tapping into it and using it. So, but once you realize, hey, we have a problem, we got to do something about that. And that's where I think Connie is particularly helpful, is once you know what the issues are and you analyze the data, you've got to dive into that. And so, Connie, I'd love to learn just a little bit, as you've worked with so many clients, different sizes, scales, even internationally. What are some of the common mistakes and pitfalls that small business owners should avoid when it comes to sales or revenue generation?
Well, and I'll just build on what Eric just said. You cannot manage what you do not measure, and whatever you measure improves. So to be able to have those key measurements is absolutely so important. And then also for small business owners, when you really look at the definition of business mindset, the number one key to business mindset is to be able to be constantly looking for opportunities and capitalizing on opportunities to create value and generate profit. and really to make that as a number one key priority. So yes, we want to have good customer service. However, to be able to have that proactive consistency is what is really important. And a lot of small business owners get caught up in the minutia of the deliverables. So it's prioritizing. And then also mistakes that the small business owners make is follow through. That used to be before the internet and social media that a lead goes rotten is like a banana. It goes rotten after 3 days. Well, in my view, a lead goes south after 3 hours. And I was in a meeting just recently. It was a networking, and I was standing in line talking to this web designer, and she was pretty interesting. And I've been thinking, I might want to just kind of have somebody look at my website and give me a little bit of info. And I was totally enthused about this woman. We talked on a Tuesday. I gave her my card. I did not get an email from her or a call or anything for 8 days later. And my enthusiasm is just like, I mean, it's still sitting in my inbox. I haven't even read it. So that follow through is where many people foul up, and they don't have a process for that consistency of follow through.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Eric, I know as you and I have talked, that's one of the big things that we see is really that whether you call it a funnel or, process, customer journey, when that breaks down, it creates a lot of issues for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So awesome. Well, great insight. Thanks, Connie. I'm thinking too about, the small business owner, but it's also really their team. And I think that one of the things that is important for the owner and the organization is to have a sales focused culture within the organization that can support and improve sales performance. So what are maybe some tips or thoughts that you have on kind of how to get your team rallied around this sales culture?
Well, sales, just be enthused, lead the pack as far as the team, and have incentive, have sales meetings. I work with a lot of recruiting companies, and they're sales on steroids. Do you know what? They have a meeting every single morning with their team, and they have a conversation. Now it might be only 15, 20 minutes, but they're connecting and they're motivated. They have incentives. They recognize the people that are producing, and they really talk about sales in a very positive way. And David, I know that your background is training and learning and growing. And do you know the number one carrier for sales call reluctance are sales trainers and sales managers? Because they'll say, don't go out there and be like the regular salespeople. I mean, they start telling them, don't do this and don't do that. And so really have a sales culture of this is what works, and just encourage. And also role play. Role play is so important. I mean, I have big clients that have simulators that they'll put their salespeople in simulators, just like the pilot, and just give those scenarios. And especially in those areas where people aren't comfortable, instead of sending them out and hoping they're going to get comfortable, work with them, role play, get them used to it, have them say what you are recommending that they say. And once they say it, then they're going to be able to integrate it.
Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I want a sales simulator for our wireless business that we used to have.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, as technology grows, right, it's going to be more and more common, I think. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's actually pretty cool. I know that one of the things that we stress extensively in the years that I was in the wireless industry. It was all about role playing. And my logic was, I'd rather, if you're going to mess up on a sales interaction, I'd rather it be in a training environment. And it's even, I feel like it was more uncomfortable in a training environment to do a role, right, to have a sales conversation than a live environment with a real customer, because you feel like you're kind of on the stage. Whereas with a customer, they don't know if I make a mistake. But when I'm in front of my peers, they're all quick to judge and acknowledge, oh, hey, you missed this or you missed that or whatever. And as I got better and then I moved into leadership roles, it was we need to role play, because I'd rather have you practice on your peers than to be practicing on live fire. The analogy is in the military is, you want live fire exhibition, right? I don't want you doing it with real customers. I want you practicing somewhere else in a protected environment. So when you make a mistake, it doesn't hurt the transaction opportunity. And it only helps to improve. But the challenge was experienced salespeople think they don't need to do that. And I would constantly remind them, like, no, we all need to practice all the time, every day, all the time.
Well, and seasoned salespeople often they have outdated techniques and processes. And I coach seasoned financial advisors that are just so excited. I've got a $15 million company coming in and It was a great referral. They loved me. And the next day, an email, sorry, we're going somewhere else. Well, what happened? And part of what I train is sell more, talk less.
Right.
Yep. No, awesome. Well, and kind of on that note, I'm thinking about small business owner, or maybe they've got kind of a head salesperson, but I think there's inevitably, right, the objections that come up during the sales process and the need to ask closing questions and get that sale closed. So any advice that you'd offer to a small business owner that maybe struggles a bit with sales or struggles a bit with overcoming those objections from their customers or clients?
Well, and if a common objection that they often hear, address it up front. The two behavioral scientists that I work with, recognize and vocalize, address it up front if it's common. And then also, if you have a really good sales process, and 70% of the sale is engagement and discovering the need of the prospect. And if you do a really good job there, you don't usually get objections. But what happens is salespeople hear something that, they didn't really want to hear. They don't know how to address it, and they ignore it. And it comes back to haunt them. So I always say, ignore nothing. And there's a book, I believe it is the most important sales book out there, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, the former FBI hostage negotiator. And he teaches a way of just recognizing and vocalizing whatever you just heard. And when you feel that the prospect is hesitating or you just call it. It seems like you may not be comfortable answering this question. It seems like you may be hesitating to share, and just get really good at recognizing and vocalizing whatever you're perceiving in that conversation, because you might as well bring it up right now, and then it's your tone of voice and all that other stuff that falls into place. So, and then in closing the sale is like, it depends on your product or service. You close along the way, every step you go. And then your closing is, like mine is, I take MasterCard, Visa, or Amex. Which do you prefer? So to be able to have that transition that you have role played, that just organically unfolds. And if you're doing a really good job, they're going to ask you, how do we get started here?
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. Great tips. Well, one of the things that you got me thinking about is we're talking about, overcoming objections, closing the sale. I think, that's one aspect of it. I think the other aspect of it is small business owners that need to build and maintain that long-term customer relationship. So kind of either repeat sales, reoccurring revenue. And I think that's an important thing that people tend to forget about as well. So any tips or advice on how to help create those lifetime customers and repeat sales and referrals?
Well, it's prompt service and just really staying on top of it and appreciating and thank you. And one of the things is give them a resource along the way if you feel it would be helpful. And a referral, I thought about you. Oftentimes they'll share certain things with you. And if you see a YouTube video or something like that, that you can just let them know you really want them to succeed. I think the key is just staying right on top of it and being very prompt. And you have to build a little bit of time in your schedule to take care of people and let them know that you appreciate them and that you're here to partner with them. And one of the companies I worked with spent $1 million on market research and found out by just saying partner makes a huge difference in creating that relationship and that in their mind that we want to have a mutually beneficial relationship. So
Awesome. I love it.
Go ahead. I was gonna say interesting concept on the partner piece, right? And even as a coach, I think about that in my sales presentation. We're partnering with our clients, right? Where it's as a coach, I'm not directing your team. I'm not challenging your team on what we're going to do. I'm suggesting to you as the owner a direction, a particular opportunity that I recognize, and then offer a suggestion or a solution. And then it's up to the owner to execute on it. But it is a partnership. To your point, it's a great term that could be incorporated in the sales presentation, because that sounds a lot better than I'll coach you, but I'll partner with you through this process. So I'm going to take that and start using that in my conversations.
Awesome. Well, I love it. And, as we're talking about small business owners, and one of the things Eric and I have discussed in previous episodes is not every small business owner is great at sales, right? And maybe, they started a plumbing company because that's what they're great at, or, they built the software and they're kind of struggling to sell it, right? So whatever that is that the small business owner is struggling with, if that's not a natural strength of theirs, if they haven't spent most of their life selling, if they're not maybe exceptional communicators, what are some things that they can do to kind of sharpen those communication skills so they can better connect with customers and ultimately increase their sales?
Well, they need a coach. And a coach is somebody that helps them take care from their current reality to their desired result. And we're only as strong as our weakest link. And with people who just are not comfortable with sales, well, maybe they need to hire a salesperson. That's not easy for that small business owner. And they really need a good assessment tool, maybe more than one, before they ever bring on a salesperson, because so many people, they like this person, they just want to get this off their task list. They hire them and the person is not qualified and not going to follow through, and they don't know how to coach them. And with a coach, they can really zero in on what those gaps are. And there are a lot of very good programs that teach them. I teach a class on never split the difference for sales, and it's practice, 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 because people can read a book, and we love books. The insights were 20%, but to integrate is the big deal. And they need to come to grips that if they're in business to sell, they're in business to make money. So if that's not their strength, they better either hone up on their skills or find somebody that can do that job for them.
I love it. Well said.
I've got 2 points I want to throw in there, and I appreciate Connie's feedback because I think that's great. What I would also add, one of the gaps that I see when it comes to anyone who's struggling with sales, in my experience, it's generally because they don't listen well. Connie kind of hit on it earlier in the regards to that overcoming objections usually isn't as challenging if you actually listen well to the hot buttons that the client has, and you help you recognize that, okay, that's going to be a concern. Let's address that now, as she mentioned it earlier about overcoming objections. That improves your ability to sell so much. I would say 3, 4, 5-fold easy. Just listening and being able to determine that this is going to be an objection and address it before it becomes, okay, so, what would it take to move forward? And then they come up with the objections. But if you address it in your conversation throughout, then it's not an objection at the end. And so that really kind of changes the dynamic of the relationship. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say, and it's in relation to the conversation about an owner finding a salesperson. I've recently been coaching clients in a scenario, a couple of clients actually, where this is the situation. And the owner has, at least from what I can ascertain, has never actually sold the product that they're currently selling as a business. So they brought somebody in to sell for them. And guess what? Just like Connie said, they're struggling on coaching the sales organization. So now they're trying to find a sales manager to manage the sales organization. And the owner is leading the conversation, and the owner's never actually sold the product. So the gap is the owner doesn't even know. And the owner's created the business. It's his idea, but he couldn't sell it. So he had to go find somebody else. And that tells me that there's probably a problem with the product or service that they're offering. And that because he wasn't able to sell it, there's probably going to be a major problem with the sales team because they're never going to be able to dial it in effectively and really kind of get a solution on that. So Connie's dead on with her points. And I just wanted to kind of add to that because I think that's a huge gap. And I think if the piece I would add there is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. First thing he said, the first thing he learned from his rich dad is before you go out and start your own business, you got to learn how to sell.
Yeah.
Right. At least you need to understand how to sell what it is that you want to, what you're going to build your business off of. And then, you can certainly hire somebody else who's going to do it better than you do it. But if you can't sell it, how in the world is somebody else going to be able to sell it?
And thank you. And even asking the people, what is your definition of sales?
Yeah.
And my definition is solving people's problem for a profit. That's what we're doing, right?
I like that.
So yes, they need it. They need Eric. That business owner needs Eric to really have him or her like, okay, here, we need to back up and let's get some structure here. Let's get this business on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think, you've hit on some really important points. And one thing that I'm thinking about is, if they start working with a coach, they start, improving their communication skills, they get better at overcoming objections, they're going to start getting that momentum. And I think one of the things that business owners struggle with and can be really frustrating is that lack of consistency, right? So they get this roller coaster where things are going good and then they, kind of lose some focus, it goes down. And so you have this little roller coaster ride with their revenue, which is really scary, right? And so I think one of the things you want to look at is how that small business owner can create that consistency to meet or exceed their sales goals. So any practical tips you could offer a business owner on that?
Well, I have something here. I got it on Amazon. And so I've been in business for 27 years, right? And so there are 10 of these beads, and the goal is that I move 10 a day. And what that means is that I followed up, I reached out, I promoted, I did that, and just this is a priority. And you do this, for crying out loud, it just works. But going back to, you can't manage what you don't measure. So everybody has to decide. And, when I work within sales organizations and new people is 20 conversations a day. Now, you tell them 20 conversations a day, and that means that they might have 10. If you tell them to have 10, they'll have 5.
Yep.
And so I was working with a tenant real estate sales guy. So commercial tenant. And he would put 14 pennies in his right hand pocket. And he would walk into businesses, and every time he would move the pennies to the left-hand pocket, he would not leave until they were all moved. And within 1 week, he landed a deal. And so it's you just have to have those metrics and make it a game and have fun with it. But it all comes back to the discipline of prioritizing and that ideal. And what else is really important is that people understand the psychographics of their ideal prospect. So what I mean by that is, what is the prospect thinking or feeling in that moment that you could solve their problem? And so that helps us really get into that empathetic position with them. And that's another way that coaches can really help salespeople recognize, because I was talking to somebody and I go, so who's your prospect? She said, anybody that has skin. And I'm going, okay. Her average skincare was $300 to start and $160 a month. Wow. So that means maybe they have skin, they have to have that extra. And somebody recently said, anybody that has money. Well, no. What is the psychographic? What are they thinking and feeling? And that really helps people get clear on knowing that they're working with their ideal prospect.
Love it.
No, yeah, that's a great point, Connie. I think that's also a miss. I use this phrase often. People will tell me they have a lead problem. And when I first sit down with them, I tell them, I know you probably believe you have a lead problem, but I'm going to guess you have a conversion problem. And often what we recognize is that they're actually marketing. Either they're doing shotgun marketing, which is giving them poor leads, meaning that they're talking to people that aren't qualified, and consequently, then they're obviously not having the best sales conversations, right? It's going to dramatically reduce your conversion rates. It's also going to burn your people out faster. And so understanding that, to your point, who's my ideal client? Well, if I'm talking to my ideal client 10 times, I'm in a target rich environment. I should be closing half of those sales if I'm talking to the right kind of client. If my product serves the need and I'm talking to the right client, a qualified client, I should be closing 50% or better of my sales conversations.
Yes.
So that's a big piece of that, is truly understanding, to your point, the psychographic of the individual. What is it where are they at in their decision-making process? What are they thinking through? And then being empathetic to that. So, because then it helps you determine, right, I'm talking to the right people, and now I can help them with their decision-making process.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, great point.
Well, I think just to, kind of bring us home before we talk about some key points and action items from today. Technology, we talked about at the beginning. I think we'll bring it back up here, but technology really helps with a lot of these things, whether it's the analytics or, that sales journey or the follow-up, right? All of those sorts of things. So kind of be curious your perspective on kind of how a small business owner can leverage technology or digital tools to enhance sales performance or widen their customer base.
Wow, you're really opening the door here. Chat GPT. So I was prospecting an insurance company, and I just asked Chat GPT, do a SWOT analysis for XYZ company. and or XYZ industry, and what is the main challenge for XYZ. I was working with somebody who wanted to contact a CEO of a ballet organization, and we put in Chat GPT. What are the challenges that a CEO? I mean, it came up with them right then and there, and then we can zero in on what is it, what's on their mind right now. So you should have another program with really talking about Chat GPT and how salespeople are using AI in a really powerful, constructive way. I was talking to a banker in the Midwest, and they identify prospects, commercial client, banks, commercial potential customers through AI, and then they have another AI that helps them prepare for that first meeting on really zeroing in on what is it going on here, so that we can find out and bring up the unknown. So,
yeah. What a great example. That's awesome. Thanks, Connie.
That was great. That was awesome. And I have a quick question, Connie. The one of the things that we've used in the past was an assessment tool to help determine who would be an ideal salesperson, or at least a salesperson that's for your particular organizations, right? Like, for instance, a certain company. Like when we were in the wireless industry, we figured out who our best producers were. We did an assessment of their personality, and then we basically used that to determine who we were looking for going forward for our candidates. Have you have some experience with that? Have you used anything like that in the past? And do you have any suggestions for the clients?
Well, I sell the granddaddy of them all, which is the Sales Preference Questionnaire, SPQ Gold Questionnaire, and it measures their behaviors when it comes to clientele building. And it tells, do these people have the physical and psychological energy to sell? Do they really have the emotional connection to their personal and professional goals? And also measures the 16 ways they may hold themselves back. And how are they going to show up in the front of the customer? Are they too nice to close the deal? Some salespeople go right up to the close and go, woo, I don't want to be too pushy. And so the SPQ Gold, I sell it across the license for US, Canada, the Caribbean. And it is, I sell it to diverse companies throughout the country. So the SPQ Gold, Connie Kadansky, reach out to me.
I'm going to get one of those for David. I want David to take it.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Bring it on. Is he a sales guy for you?
No. Well, we used to work together in the wireless industry, and it's kind of an inside joke between him and I.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, let me cover a couple key points just for our audience here, and then Connie would love to hear maybe what's new or what you'd like to feature over at Exceptional Sales. But I think one of the things I heard was focus on building confidence and overcoming mindset barriers to tackle sales call reluctance effectively. And I think really starting with that is important, because that's where it all begins, is with that mindset. So really appreciate that insight. Prioritizing effective communication skills to connect with customers, right? Whether that's, through listening or, exploring, uncovering, right? All those behaviors you discussed, and that's going to help drive more sales. Set and consistently meet sales targets through planning and really execution. So Connie, you talked about staying disciplined and just doing those things every day, and love the visual of the advocates there. So that was great. And then embracing technology and digital tools to enhance sales performance and really expand your customer reach is one of the great things you can do now, whether it's Chat GPT or other tools. And then cultivate strong customer relationships with repeat sales and positive word of mouth referrals, because they had such a great experience, because we listened to their needs. And that's just going to allow us to have those long-term relationships. So Connie, just really appreciate all the insights. And again, would love to hear about anything that you'd love to feature over at Exceptional Sales Performance.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just bought the trademark Empathetic Sales Mastery
Mm.
because our prospects are looking for us to know what we're talking about, to help them solve a problem, but to have empathy and to really listen to the deeper meaning of what this is about, and to get salespeople out of listening to fix the problem. Listen for meaning first. So I have a 9-week course, and it's practice, practice, practice. And so we really learn these very, very cool techniques that Chris Voss teaches, a former FBI hostage negotiator. And then we practice and bring true scenarios. And what happens is people call me and they just go, Connie, this is like a miracle. It is so easy to have a conversation when we get in that mindset, and just to listen what Eric was really kind of beating that drum on. And so that's one thing. And then the assessment tool for salespeople and also can be used as a coaching and development tool to get people on the right track, to have that consistency.
Great. Well, those all sound like awesome solutions. And of course, we'll have a link to your website in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Connie, connect with her, maybe check out some of those great tools, definitely be sure to do that. So thanks, Connie. Eric. Yeah, absolutely. Eric, what's new at My Biz Coaches?
So I've been teasing. I'll continue to tease for another week or two, and as we work on our new relationships with some strategic alliances. So excited about the coming changes there. That will changes, enhancements, I will say, that will offer for My Biz Coaches and really kind of allow us to ramp up not only our ability to work with more clients, but also put us on sorry, lost my train of thought, but get focused on getting new coaches as well. As we, my goal this year is to get to 25 coaches by the end of the year. And that's a big jump from where we've been. So, but I'm excited about it. And we have this strategic alliance that I think will go a long way to help us kind of tie that in. So excited about that. But and then we obviously, as I mentioned last week, we have our event coming up in October. So super excited about that. We'll have more details probably next month on the event.
Eric, I keep asking, trying to crack that veil of secrecy about this alliance and strategic partnerships. So one of these weeks, we're finally going to crack it. So
that's right. Eventually, I'll bring it out. I'll share it, and we'll be ready for it.
Awesome. Oh, sounds good. Well, Connie, I want to thank you again for joining us today, for all the great insights. Been great chatting with you, and really appreciate your time and, again, your expertise when it comes to all things sales. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Eric, great to hang out with you as well, and we'll chat with you next week.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you on the next episode.